Other options in Stochas that you have in the, first of all, in the edit menu, you've got the ability to clear and copy patterns and clear and copy layers from different layers. And then when you have a selection, as you recall, this actions menu will appear. Other options in Stochas, first of all, let me point out this randomization under the patch options. So let's say Stochas is playing through and you suddenly find something that you really, really like, and you want that to keep looping through. Now this can be great, or you can use Stochas to create ideas and then hit this stable button. And while Stochas is, or just after Stochas has played back, it will remember the last sequence it's played or the last pattern. And then it will lock that pattern and keep repeating it, so you can freeze the randomization and have Stochas play that. Other options in Stochas are, the other options that are available in Stochas are here on the patch options, and first of all let me point this one out. We've got randomization, so this is variable and stable. When in variable mode, or this is highlighted, the randomization is going to work every time. So it will randomly select between the notes that are in the edit grid. Now let's say you've got a sequence that Stochas has just played and you really like that it's played these notes. If you click stable, it will then lock or freeze this selection and play back these notes regardless of what else is in the grid, and always play back that selection. So it's a way of using Stochas as a composition tool to set out some chords maybe and have it play through a single note bass line, and then once you've found the bass line you want, hit stable and it will then loop that through. You've got the load and the save patch, so you can load and save patches from Stochas which will load everything: the layer settings, the pattern settings, all the layer options, groove, swings, and velocity, chains, shifts. Finally, we'll move on to the settings tab, and these are the global controls for Stochas. So mouse sensitivity can be set between 1 and 10, and that controls how responsive or how far I have to move the mouse to drag and assign different controls. That was set to 1. Now if I set it to 10, you'll see how little I have to move. So depending on your editing style, mouse or tracker pad you're using to control Stochas, you can set this to respond how you like it. Now the right click option can be changed. I'll just switch back to mono mode so we can see the medium and high and low probability settings. And right click will, at the moment, delete a note. If I move it to cycle down mode, right clicking will change this note from a medium to a low note, and now I get the option to left click on a note and cycle it up. So yes, I can still use the drag up and down, but I can also quickly just jump through and cycle my note probability down. This also changes and works with velocities. So you can cycle through different preset velocity settings that we've put in, which are 35, 70, 95 and 127. Now, default mono and default poly. This is the settings for when I left click and input a single note. So if I want every note that I input to be high, or I can set the probability to be low, or I can set the probability to be chained notes if I want. If I was going through and I've put in a couple of notes to start with, and then I wanted to come back and put chains in, I can do so here, this way. Default poly, I can also set the probability for when I input a note in polyphonic mode. Here, as you can see, it's doing 57% now. Default velocity is exactly the same. As you can see, I've put in that note there that was a 90 velocity. If I set this now to 127 and go back and put in those three notes, you'll see the velocity is now set to 127. We've got an option for lowest octave here. Now, some playback engines, synths and hardware devices have a different lowest octave. They may not always use 0. You might find that their lowest octave actually starts at 1. So you might want to nudge your octaves so that they match up with what you're expecting to hear. So sometimes this set of notes here, this D5, might actually be coming out at D4. So what you want to do is change the lowest octave here. Color schemes. Now, we're using the dark color scheme here. We have a light color scheme. This is changing just the backgrounds. The notes on the grid do not change. And then we have our own custom color scheme. And here I've set this up to use the red and white colors of the Audio Vitamins logo. To customize your color scheme, check out the manual as to where the files are that need to be edited, but you will need to use RGB values. Next, and finally, we've got a shift key reversal. If you remember, shift and dragging is how we make a selection. You might find that you want to use just a standard click and drag as a selection, because you're going to be using the right click cycle up and down. And you may not need the option to click and drag up and down that the shift key in normal mode, like that, would give you. So with a reversed shift key and a right click in cycle down mode, you have a completely different workflow where you can just left click and drag to select, or you can click singly to cycle through and right click to cycle down. However, if you wanted to then adjust these notes by a smaller value, you would need to hold down the shift key and then scroll up or down.